Tell me a bit about your family, like your parents and your brother, Robert.
Okay. Oh, well, my mother, her family came from Istanbul, from Turkey. So my grandfather came here in 1908 from Istanbul, and he bought a house in Chiswick, number 7 Chiswick Lane, which is where I was born and grew up with my grandparents for the first 7 years.
That's what you said at the beginning?
1948, I was born. Then my brother came in 1951. His name's Robert Benedat. And then my father's parents came from Salonika in Greece. And they came here in 1903, and they went to Shoreditch. They lived there, and my grandparents had 7 children, my father being one of them. What else would you like to know?
That's a lot.
Well, they all had quite big families then, actually. And when they came from Salonika, they didn't really know what they were going to do. And to make money, they rolled cigarettes in their flat. And that's all they did. They rolled cigarettes and they sold them. And that's how they made money to start with. And then
did lots of people smoke then?
I think they did, yes. Then they started to make carpets or sell carpets, and that's how my father ended up with a shop in Kings Road, Chelsea, called Benedat Carpets. So that's my parents. My brother then also went into the carpet business as well. I wasn't allowed to. I wanted to, and they wouldn't let me.
Why?
I'm a girl. I'm a Sephardi girl. My brother went to private school. I didn't. So there was a big difference, you see. So, Mum, Betty Benedat, her name was Betty Cohen. She, I think, was the most selfless person on the planet. She put everybody before her, and it sort of upset me in the end that she didn't do things for herself. So she spent her life doing things for others, and by the time she wanted to do things for others, then she wasn't well. So then it was a bit too late. My father, he didn't get married to my mother until he was 40.
40?
40. So he was single for a long time. And my father was married once before. He was married for 1 year. Can you see me? Yep. He was married for 1 year only when he was about 24. Unfortunately, she divorced him. And then he was on his own for a long, long time. And then I believe he was introduced to my mother at a wedding. And
do you know whose wedding?
No, I don't know. But he proposed, they got married, and in 1947, and 9 months later, I was born. So when he was just 40, I was born.
So you were born
1948.
You were born the same year as they got married, or a year after?
Just a little bit after, yeah. They got married in June, and I was born April. My father was what we would call a very, very dapper man. He was a good-looking man. He was very, very short, and my mother was much taller than him. And once he got married, he decided to work hard, and he had a shop in Kings Road selling carpets. And he was always very, 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 very smart. Every single day, he always put on a clean shirt and tie and a new suit. And his wardrobe was just full of different suits. And people where I lived used to laugh because he always did his gardening in a suit. Always.
In a suit?
in a suit, yes. Grandma was a wonderful cook and a wonderful mum. She never worked, she didn't drive, and when she used to do the shopping, she used to take her bicycle with a big basket on the front, and she'd go to the local small grocers, and she'd get all her groceries every day and cycle them back, and she cycled everywhere. And she was very, very fit. She was a fantastic swimmer, and she was a wonderful diver. And before I was born, she wanted to go into the army, and her parents wouldn't let her. So Mum wasn't allowed to do a lot of things. So she just ended up being a housewife and a mum, and she did that very, very well. But I sort of think that she could have done a lot more things as well.
You said she was a swimmer. Did she ever compete? Not in like the Olympics, or did she compete against people?
No, she didn't compete. But she loved anything to do with the body. She wanted to actually help in the war as well by becoming a nurse. So she wasn't allowed to go and join any of the forces. So what she did a first aid course, and there are pictures of her taking her course and wearing her uniform. And I think I've got that here, which I can show you. And so every night when I had a bath, when I came out of the bath, it was a tiny bathroom. The bathroom was really maybe just 4 times the size of your downstairs toilet. So very, very small. You walked in, there was the bath and nowhere to move and just the sink. And I used to stand on this box every night when I came out of the bath. She'd wrap a towel around me, and she would start from my feet and go all the way up to my head and tell me the bones of the body and the muscles in the body. And I used to learn them. And it was because of that, and also because she made us watch live television of operations. Yeah, I loved it. And the one thing I was good at school was biology and French. I was only good at 2 subjects at school, nothing else. And you know what happened with me with maths, don't you?
Yep.
Maths, I told off.
Scared to do it.
Yep, and you know the story, don't you, of me when I was 3 and I wasn't allowed to go to the loo.
Yes.
Yep. So all those things, all those experiences that I remember really, really well impacted upon me greatly. And I think because of my mother, I loved biology and human biology, and I got on well. I used to do well in the cookery class, and I did fantastically in the gym. I was the first person to be picked in the school to join the school gymnastics club, and we performed. And I think I have a granddaughter that's similar.
She might be sitting here talking to you right now. You never know.
She might be. So there's definitely something I think that runs in the family with gymnastics, and you are carrying the torch for the Benedoutnism family. So where to now? Have I said everything about my parents?
Yep.
My father was a person who was very organized. He had the same meal practically every day of his life. Breakfast was the same, lunch was the same, dinner was the same. And
what was that?
For breakfast, he always had melon. He always had with butter, had to be butter, and it had to be Tiptree marmalade, always the same. Lunch was the same. In the evening, he'd always have a piece of fish. If my mother served him too many peas, he'd always say, "Oh, Betty, too many peas, too many peas." And if you ever mentioned the tomato to him, which he said he couldn't eat because he had stomach problems, he'd always say, "Take me away in a coffin. Take me away. I can't eat tomatoes."
Earlier on, you said I think you said one school you liked, you enjoyed, and one school you didn't like so much. So
that's right.
You told me a bit about the school that you enjoyed. Can you tell me a bit about the school that you didn't enjoy?
good question. Well, I was only there for 3-4 years, and the reason I left early is because my mother wasn't very happy with the school or the people I was mixing with, and it was a mixed school, but we had separate schools for the boys and the girls, and there was a very, very big school. I was a bit naughty in the school. What shall I tell you? Okay, there were some lessons that I didn't enjoy, and do you know what I did because I didn't enjoy them?
This is not going to be good.
Do you want to know?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't go. I just left the class and I didn't go to them. And I would go. I'd leave the school, and there was sort of an alleyway, long alleyway that people used to go and walk down. And I used to go and stay there walk there with a friend of mine, or we'd go to a shop, the sweet shop, and buy some sweets. When we knew the lesson was over, we'd walk back into school again. I didn't attend any of the morning assemblies because I told them that because I was Jewish, I wasn't allowed in assembly. So I never went to those either. The thing that I did do well was netball and hockey. So again, and sports and gym. But in the type of school I was in, nobody noticed if I wasn't there.
Really? I was just about to ask you, didn't they say something?
Nope.
Did they not realise once that you weren't there?
No. And there were gangs of girls in our school who used to gang up against other girls and were pretty mean to them. But I was a bit known as a bit of a ringleader for some reason. I don't know why, because I wasn't in a gang or anything. But I think I was a bit bold with people and so on, and so I fortunately didn't get picked on. But I also didn't learn that much in school either.
Did your parents know about you skipping classes?
They didn't know. My parents never ever asked me. I never did homework in my life.
Never?
No. We didn't have homework, but my parents never ever asked me what subjects I liked. They never asked me what I would be interested in doing. They never asked me anything about school. I used to just go to school and come home, and no one mentioned anything at all. So the only thing my parents knew is that my mother knew, she didn't like the people at school who I was mixing with, and she decided at 14 that I should leave. And so at 14 I left school and I was sent to a secretarial college where lots of girls my age went to, called Pitman's in Ealing, and I learned shorthand and typing, and I did really well at that. And so when I came out of school when I was 15, I went to become a secretary at the BBC. So that sort of joins up some of the questions that you asked before, what my first job was. So that was quite a long interview. It's actually a lot more than I imagined it was going to be. And I think your questions are really interesting. And I like the way that you interview and you clearly listen really hard, because you're not just asking questions
than I thought it would be as well.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you do it very well.
I only planned a few questions, and with your answers, I came up with more questions.
Yeah, well, that's the skill of a good interviewer, and I think you have it. So thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Okay. So shall I say good night?
Good night.
Yeah.
Bye.